HDLC staff performed another visual inspection of the building, noting that little had changed from the previous inspection of February that year. However, there were signs of weathering not uncommon for an uninhabited building. At the beginning of May of 2023, the neighbors became very concerned about the state of the building and began contacting the HDLC as work had commenced. On May 9th, 2023, a demolition by neglect citation was issued. A visual inspection was again conducted by the HDLC staff and noted all the wood windows had been removed and the building was completely open to the elements. However, the roofing material was intact. On May 25th, the renovation permit was revoked by safety and permits for not having a licensed contractor, as noted by HDLC staff. A visual inspection again conducted on June 6th. The rear encapsulated porch had been removed and portions of the roofing materials had also been removed. HDLC staff noted that the foundation plans for the renovation called for piles to be driven under the 14 feet of the house that was to remain, something virtually impossible to perform given the lack of structural integrity extant on the building as a result of the long-term neglect. This triggered HDLC to contact Ms. Cangelosi and Safety and Permits in order to review the updated drawings. In July of 2023, a site meeting at 1547 Leda Court was attended by Ms. Cangelosi, her legal counsel, her structural engineer, Department of Safety and Permits Chief Building Official Jay Dufour, HDLC Director Brian Block, and Plans Examiner Jesse Stevenson. The building had no visible holes in the roof, and the flooring material had been removed. The slow destabilization of the building and poor sill condition rendered the side elevation walls non-salvageable, including the 14 feet previously required by council. Ms. Cangelosi's structural engineer agreed the front porch and primary facade could be saved if properly braced. HDLC Director Brian Block agreed to the compromise of only preserving these elements in an effort to move the project forward. Ms. Cangelosi was given 30 days to revise the drawings for the new structural system for the sill work and bracing required to save the front wall. In that 30 days, work was to commence to secure the building and site for safety issues. This did not happen. Instead, on Sunday, July 30th, Ms. Cangelosi was contacted Brian Block to notify him that the building had collapsed. Coincidentally, there was a backhoe on site, which is typically antithetical to securing a building and properly bracing the primary facade. By the time the visual inspection was performed by the HDLC on the morning of Monday, July 31st, the site had been completely leveled and cleared with the exception of some porch columns and a bit of lumber. This was less than 24 hours after the collapse. There are no photos of the collapse or the collapse conditions that were given to the HDLC staff. As this property is located in a partial control district, HDLC has no jurisdiction over what will be built to replace the historic structure. Also, staff inspections indicate that the entirety of the unusual U-shaped neighborhood comprised of Leda and Verna courts was made up of intact historic buildings of various architectural types and styles. Therefore, the loss of this arts and crafts bungalow is most unfortunate. The record shows the HDLC and Department of Safety and Permits working diligently with Ms. Cangelosi to allow her to rehabilitate and modify this building. However, it appears that there was more interest in deconstructing the building despite having been denied demolition by both HDLC and City Council on appeal. As such, the HDLC fined Ms. Cangelosi 25% of the appraised building value, which equals $42,465, the maximum fine allowable under the new fine structure adopted by the City Council. The HDLC requests that you deny this appeal and allow the levied fine to remain.
Thank you. Ms. Cangelosi.
Hello. Excuse me, I'm very nervous.
Ask her to speak in the mic.
Ma'am, can you just pull the microphone a little bit closer to your mouth? Yeah, we just want to make sure.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I lost my balance.
Sorry.
This is only one side of the story. And when the HDLC puts pictures up of my house, they never show the inside and the extensive termite damage. I submitted the engineer's report that shows the damage. I hope you all received it. And more importantly, that this house has no foundation or had no foundation. It was kind of in a lake and it was missing adequate foundation for Louisiana. It was like, you can't see it. That's why I submitted the photos from the engineer's report, but on the side, it was buckling and there's like nothing underneath it. And when it rains, the rain comes up to 1 or 2 steps and that whole, the structure of support underneath is in water. I came here in 2019. I received a modified approval. It said I should retain the first 14 feet. It said I should submit reconstruction plans to HDL staff. I did that to Elliot. I drew a building, an addition to that building to the 14 feet front that was all arts and crafts style, that was coherent with the neighborhood, that preserved the character of the neighborhood. It also says, which was reviewed for consistency and compatibility by Elliot. And then it says the owner will salvage and reuse as much of the existing building materials and architectural details as possible. Well, when you see the house torn apart in subsequent pictures, that I removed the windows or that I removed this and I removed that, I was doing the salvaging. PRC had told me to do that. The council had told me to do that in the motion. So I feel like I'm being, like that. When you see that picture, you don't really understand what was going on. That cut in the roof is the demolition guy cutting at 14 feet. And so that kind of explains why the building looks like that. It was like a week before the demolition was going to occur, a partial demolition of the rear portion behind the 14-foot line. I've been accused of trying to like contribute to Lita falling down. I don't know how to say that any other way. I never, if I intended to tear it down, I would have done it in 2019. I just wanted there to be another option, a way to fix Lita. I was just hoping to find a way, but I just couldn't.
Ms. Kinsley,
when,
please wrap up your comments.
Okay.
Thank
When Mr. Block came to see my building, I asked him if I could separate the first and second stories because that would be easier to elevate and move because it had to be elevated up the foundation to correct it. He didn't agree to that. My attorney friend said I could post a bond and promise that the house would be a replica of the exact same thing, but Mr. Block didn't agree to that. There were problems with permitting, giving me the wrong information. Lita had extensive termite damage and a flawed foundation not above grade. My choices were to pay Davy Shoring Company to shore it, crate it up, elevate it, whether it was 9.5 feet or 14 feet, the cost was going to be $150,000 to $200,000. My second choice was just to demolish the structure and pay the fine. Since the first one was so expensive and without value, because the building could be easily replicated to look the same, the neighbors wanted the building demolished and they were happy when it came down. They were also spared the disruption of the storing and raising operations. I'm willing to pay a fine for demolishing Lita. It's a choice I made, but I just want the fine to reflect the value of the building. I requested a reduction in property taxes in 2020. I was told that it was assessed at $50,000 by the city assessor. I've been paying the taxes on it, which I think I showed you, not that sheet, but I have a sheet of taxes that was supposed to be submitted. Anyway, I've never paid more than $2,700. The building value was assessed at 50,000, 50,330, 50, 60. And I just asked that I pay a fine, either the 25,000 or the 50, just pay a fine that's fair. And I asked this council to consider that, and I thank you very much for listening.
Thank you. All right, this single family home has been vacant since 2017 and does not have a homestead exemption. Ms. Cangelosi first attempted to demolish the property to grade in 2019. My office denied that request, but permitted partial demolition. We required the homeowner to keep the front facade and first 14 feet of the home. The rest of the home could be reconstructed as new. Instead, the interior was gutted and the home was left to fall. Structural elements and windows were removed, leaving part of the structure open to the elements. On July 6th of this year, several city agencies met with Ms. Cangelosi and her structural engineer to discuss how to safely move forward with the project and address concerns of the neighbors. It was made clear at that meeting that the structure was not to be demolished. I know Ms. Burke read this, but I think this is the most compelling part of the HDLC report. Instead, on Sunday, July 30 at 12:58, Ms. Cangelosi contacted Brian Block to notify him the building had collapsed. Coincidentally, there was a backhoe on site, which is antithetical to securing the building and properly bracing the primary facade. By the time the HDLC visual inspection was able to be completed on the morning of Monday, July 31, and this is in bold in the report, the site had been completely leveled and cleared with the exception of some porch columns and a bit of lumber. This was less than 24 hours after their collapse. There is no photos of the collapse or collapse conditions that were of any merit given to the HDLC staff. It's clear that a total demolition plan, or appears that way, had been the plan from the very beginning. The reason why the fine is as low as it is because of how the house was assigned. And so I am going to deny the appeal and maintain the fine at $42,465. I would, however, as a footnote, point this out. Remember, not too long ago in June, the HDLC fined the owners of 838 Lower Line $48,000 for replacing historic windows. That's $48,000 fine for 27% demolition of the facade, just 2% over the by right percentage. The fact that the fines for the window replacements are higher than for an illegal planned demolition by neglect continues to be an item that needs to be tweaked. And I know that all of us who have HDLC properties are happy to work with our colleagues in the legislature to amend that. So I have moved for approval. I know Councilmember Harris seconded. Members, please vote your machines. 5 yeas, no nays. Thank you very much. Thank you.
We're now on top of page 30, a legislative grouping. The HDLC appeal of Polo Rosa on behalf of Rogers Construction LLC, requested to appeal the Historic District Landmarks Commission's decision of denial of the retention of the fiber cement paneling at the front facade of the storefront building, the left side elevation and the right side elevation beyond the first downspout at the elevation for property located at 4016 St. Claude Avenue. Motion M23-474 by Councilmember King, granting the applicant's request for the property located at 4016 St. Claude Avenue.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. HDLC, you got the floor.
4016 St. Claude Avenue was constructed circa 1930 as a commercial building with attached warehouse and is located in the Bywater Full Control Local Historic District. The warehouse portion is framed with wood weatherboard siding and the commercial storefront is frame construction with stucco. For the past 2 decades, the building has either been vacant or housed itinerant businesses. The storefront of the building has been vacant since 2015 and the building has been a blank slate for graffiti. Throughout the building's history, several alterations have been made, but the original form of the building remains intact. In early 2023, the applicant took on the task of bringing the building back into commerce. Currently, the exterior of the building is a vast improvement from its previous condition and positively impacts the surrounding St. Claude corridor. In January, a certificate of appropriateness was issued for exterior work at the rear warehouse portion of the building. A final inspection revealed that areas of work deviated from the certificate of appropriateness. Work performed at the storefront, not included in the approved scope, comprises the request for retention. At their meeting of September 6, 2023, the commission voted to deny retention of the fiber cement paneling at the front facade where the window should be on the storefront and the left side elevation and the right side elevation to the first downspout. Approve retention of the paneling at the right side elevation beyond the first downspout at that elevation, and approve the retention of the removal of the openings at the right side elevation with the proviso the exterior trim be added to match the existing to indicate original openings.
All right, thank you, Ms. Nita. Any comments? Online comments? No online comments? All right. This project is located on the stretch of St. Claude that is in desperate need of investment. I implore anyone with interest in this appeal to compare photos of this property from 1 year ago today. See the difference. The transformation is undeniable. This appeal enjoys the written support of the Bywater Neighborhood Association president, and I move to adopt. Second by Councilmember Moreno. We have 5 yeas, no nays. Thank you.
Page 31, legislative grouping, HDLC appeal of Liza Drennan, requesting to appeal the Historic District Landmarks Commission's decision of denial of the retention of guardrails put around the porch and the gate to protect the children who will be attending a new preschool for property located at 342 Olivier Street. Motion M23-475 by Councilmember King, granting the applicant's request for the property located at 342 Olivier Street.
Thank you, HDLC. You got the floor.
Thank you. 342 Olivier Street is a significant rated two-story residential building constructed circa 1900 in the colonial revival style, located in the Algiers Point Local Historic District. The building currently operates as a preschool and was required by the state fire marshal to have a balustrade at the first story porch for life safety purposes. The applicant installed the current balustrade and fencing due to that request, but failed to obtain an HDLC approval prior to the work, and they are now seeking retention of the as installed condition. At their meeting of September 6, 2023, the commission voted to deny retention of the as installed condition of the wood square post balustrade at the porch, including the newel posts, deny the combination of wood and metal handrails at the right side elevation ramp, and deny the fencing at the right side yard. The commission noted that the wood square post balustrade could be installed at the main porch, provided that it matches the HDLC detailing.
All right, we have a few comment cards. First is Miss Lisa Drennan.
Hello, my name is Liza Drennan. I live in Algiers Point, and I am working towards opening a small childcare center at 342 Olivier Street in Algiers Point. Algiers Point is a growing neighborhood where over half of the residents are families with children. However, there are no childcare centers in this neighborhood, and all the centers in surrounding neighborhoods on both sides of the river have very long wait lists, many of which put families at risk of their child aging out of the wait list that is available. The building located at 342 Olivier Street is currently used as a meeting space for the Knights of Columbus. This social group holds monthly meetings and holds weekly fish fries during the weeks of Lent. That totals out to be 19 days of the year that the building is being used, and the other 346 days, the building sits vacant. The size of this building gives space to 33 potential students ages 0 to 5 and includes a wraparound outdoor play space that is not available at any other location in Algiers Point. The process to become licensed here, it starts with getting the approval of the state fire marshal's office. I was required by that office to ensure the safety of students via guardrails on the porch that did not meet any safety code, as well as a small gate to enclose the outdoor play space in a yard that is enclosed only by a broken chain link fence. I unfortunately did not know to get the approval of the HDLC before moving forward, as I was just trying to follow the rules of the state fire marshal's office. However, the guardrails that have been installed follow what the fire marshal has asked to move ahead with state licensing. The guardrails and gate are solely for the life safety of the kids and do not have any impact on the original structure of the building.
Thank you. Thank you. Next, Mr. Logan Ledford. And I did say Logan, Mr. Just. Sorry about that.
Hi, my name is Logan Ledford. Today, October 5th, is my daughter's birthday. She's 1 year old. My neighbor and friend Janice Katz encouraged me to apply to the Crescent School that is in our Algiers Point neighborhood when I was pregnant. She said her children loved it and she thought that it would be a great school for our child. Thankfully, they had a spot open and she was enrolled. It's the only school that she got into out of all that we applied to. This school is a vital part of our neighborhood and many of its families' lives. Our daughter has attended this school since the age of 3 months old. She has thrived here. It has allowed my husband and I to return to work with a sense of confidence because she's being looked after with the same attention and care that we give her at home. Currently, the school is in need of expanding into a new building to accommodate the children and families of Algiers Point. The building at 342 Olivier Street is not in use on a regular basis as the church uses it as a social club in a social club capacity. It's a beautiful historic building with a wonderful yard, and it can fill the need that this school has without a doubt. The HDLC ruling has halted the school's forward progress in expanding. The director has had to lease an extra building in the neighborhood while they wait on zoning and HDLC permission to accommodate the school. In doing so, this has caused the school, its children and families a great deal of stress and frustration, along with an extra transition period that is hard on our young children. They are in great need of more indoor and outdoor space as soon as possible. This building would allow all 3 classes to be under one roof and play together outside as well. I greatly urge you to reconsider the HDLC's ruling. What better way is there for an unused historic building to serve? As a child, I thought historic buildings were magical. I now live in one in Algiers Point. It was built in 1901 and my family cherishes it. I understand the importance of historic preservation. It is an integral part of New Orleans. The city would never be the same without it. However, there are times when modern renovations can help a historic building remain intact so it can continue to serve the community it was built in. I feel that this is one of those times. Please help our family and our school and our neighborhood move forward in this endeavor so we can continue to grow and thrive in Algiers Point and the Crescent School. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Next up, we have Ms. Katz. And following Ms. Katz, we have an online comment.
Hello. I'm Janice Katz and I took the day off of work to be here. I'm a small business owner and a mother of 2. I'm a historic preservationist and a certified historic home specialist with the PRC. I've painstakingly restored 3 homes in New Orleans, our most recent being the Villette Barrett House, where I live on Pelican Ave, 1 block from the school, the proposed school, this building. In my opinion, the railing that was installed is perfectly acceptable in design and application. I assure you that even a discerning preservationist would not oppose it. And I brought a photo of my own back railing, which is identical, should the council want to see it. I'm here today asking you to approve it, but also to provide some context about the school from a neighborhood mother's perspective. In 2019, when I was pregnant with my first, we moved to Denver only to boomerang right back out of homesickness, lured by a national landmark house in Algiers Point that needed a full restoration. Had I known when we made that decision that there would be virtually no childcare within 30 minutes one way in any direction, we wouldn't have made that choice. When we arrived back, the nursery classroom at Crescent School, where Logan's daughter now goes, didn't exist. We couldn't get off any wait list before my kids would age out of the programs to which we were applying. And in order to keep my small business afloat, we pieced together childcare through nannies and partial day programs, and it cost over $4,000 a month. We blew through personal savings for 5 months until we finally got into a program for my daughter, who was too young for the Crescent School at the time. This added commute forced me to make up 90 minutes of my workday after bedtime, literally costing me sleep and my mental health. I'm sure everyone in this room is aware of the national childcare crisis, which is pulling mothers in particular from the workforce at a breakneck pace. It is also pulling families out of New Orleans, families like myself who want to be here despite our city's shortcomings and inconveniences, simply because childcare options are limited and far away. The entire Crescent School from age 0 to 6 is the size of 1.5 kindergarten classrooms. Though it is small, its existence eliminates the pain I went through for 25 neighborhood families. All but one of the families that attend the school live in the neighborhood. And since it always seems to be #1 concern, more than 75% of the families walk or bike to school, and 2 of the 4 teachers live within 3 blocks, and there's a four parking space driveway. This leads me to my second ask, which now after sitting through this meeting I realize might be inappropriate.
You got it, Ms. Cass, that's the time.
Okay,
That's the
can I
time.
finish my paragraph?
Finish the paragraph, yes.
Please, if possible, help our small school move to a better building, help them upgrade from a concrete play area the size of 2 parking spaces to a lot-sized grass yard. Neighborhood schools are vital to the health of the community, and the building that we currently are in is small and cramped. The new building is much better for children, and if there's anything that the council can do to expedite this process, the parents of Algiers Point would be incredibly grateful.
Thank you. Before we get to that online comment, we have Mr. Michael Burnside.
Been sitting here trying to think of constructive ways to have this discussion. Michael Eric Burnside, 2215 Felicity. There's sort of 2 different conversations. One of which is somebody here said did not know, right? Did not know. And the lady who was here previously raised in my mind, who are the contractors? And why are the contractors not telling their employers, hey, we can't do this because we are general contractors licensed by the state. We know the rules. We can't do this. You need as owner to go do XYZ before we can do this. Because surely they can put guardrails on a house somehow. You just have to go to HDLC and say, what kind of handrails can we put on a house? It's not like HDLC wants kids to die. I mean, they'll figure out a way to put guardrails on a house to make everybody happy. But if you don't know what you don't know, you can't go ask. But the reason you hire a professional is so that when you go to them and say, I want to do this, the professional says, well, you got to do A, and then you got to do B, and then you got to wait 6 months, and then C will come along, and then we can do it. So who are the professionals that are tearing down buildings, demoing them, knowing that they don't have a demo permit to knock down the building? Instead, we've got some poor little owner in here trying to keep her knees from shaking. And now we have a young person who wants to start a business talking about handrails. But somebody somewhere is a professional. They're general contractors. They have to be hired and they should be held accountable. And their names should be included in these discussions. And if you have the same name keep popping up again and again and again, you should invite them in for a discussion. Like, why are you just not informing your employers of basic realities? It's a yellow light, and I don't have much time for my other thought, but I realize that this building is owned by a church and it's only used 19 days out of the year. And so it makes perfect sense to allow kids in there for the other rest of the time. But the bottom line is the economics is such that residential buildings are used for commercial uses all the time. Whether it's a preschool or whether it's a law office, lots of residential uses are not being used as residential uses. Lots of residential housing and residential uses are being used for commercial reasons. We have a lot of empty commercial buildings in this city. If a new business wants to set themselves up, they may even need a subsidy from somebody to get into a commercial building. But if we keep using residential buildings for businesses, we will further the continuing problem of finding places for poor people to live. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Burnside. Can we get that online comment, Ms. Anita?
Yes, this is from Lindsay Butler. She says, Honorable City Council, I'm writing to express my support for motion M23-475 to grant the appeal of the HDLC's decision to deny retention of the wood square post balustrade at the porch, side ramp, and interior fencing. I believe that the organization, which is a child care center, should be permitted to maintain the railings that they've installed, as they are minimum requirements for health, welfare, life safety, and accessibility. The prior configurations did not meet these minimum requirements. Additionally, the child care center is a tenant and not the property owner, and installation of a fundamental life safety and accessibility measure is an undue burden on a small organization. The property owner is a tax exempt organization that uses the property occasionally during Lent, as it sits vacant most of the year. It is in the best interest of the neighborhood and the longevity of the building to have regular continued use. And as a neighbor, I also support their conditional use application as a child care center. The child care center will have essentially no adverse impacts on the neighborhood while providing a valuable amenity and resource. And as such is one of the most appropriate ways to bring this beautiful property into commerce. While I understand the HDLC's concerns that the installed railings do not meet the exact detail noted in their report, the National Park Service's published preservation brief, Making Historic Properties Accessible, notes in regard to railings installed on ramps that they should be simple in design, distinguishable from other historic features, implying that a historic styled railing would not be an appropriate solution, as the existing lower level porch did not have a railing that met code requirements. It also follows that a new railing for fall protection should similarly be distinguishable from historic features. The preservation brief explicitly notes that unpainted treated lumber should not be used. So I would support a recommendation that the treated wood be painted. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. At this time, make a motion to approve the applicant's appeal. Second by Councilmember Green. Five yeas, no nays. The motion is approved.
Legislative grouping, University Area Off-Street Parking Interim Zoning District Appeal of James Osborne and Monica Laparence. Brief requesting to appeal the parking requirements of the University Area Off-Street Parking Interim Zoning District per Article 19 of the city's comprehensive zoning ordinance as it applies for property located at 1133 Lower Line Street. Motion number 23-461. Where are you? The next page. I'm sorry, we on page 32. The VCC appeal of 711 Bourbon Street has been deferred to October the 19th. At the bottom of the page, a legislative grouping, the University Area Off-Street Park and Interim Zoning District appeal of David N. Griner Jr. and Diane E. Mipro, requesting to appeal the parking requirements established by the University Area Off-Street Parking Interim Zoning District for property located at 4127 Fontainebleau Drive. We have motion M23-469 by Councilmember Harris, approving and granting the applicant's request for the property located at 4127 Fontainebleau Drive.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. This motion would approve the Double Sedorms IZD appeal for a family home located at 4127 Fontainebleau Drive. This family is adding one additional bedroom and a bathroom to accommodate their growing family. This home will remain a single family dwelling and will allow the family to stay in their current home. Is there any online or public comment?
We have one online comment.
Okay.
This is from the homeowners, David and Diane Griner. Under the recommendation of Councilmember Harris's office, we are submitting a comment on our behalf with respect to regular 08A, our appeal, the University Zoning District Ordinance. We have been residents of Broadmoor and our current home since June 2018. Between that time and now, my family has grown and our need for living space has also expanded. The current architectural renovation plans added roughly 800 square feet of space and include another bedroom and bathroom. Because the ordinance requires additional off-street parking to accommodate the new bedroom, we are filing an appeal. My family has no interest in short-term rentals of our property. Per the council's request, we filed a deed restriction specific to short-term rentals, agreeing that we would not engage in them with our home at 4127 Fontainebleau. My children are 10, 7, and 2. We don't even expect to have another vehicle to necessitate additional parking within the next 7 years. We simply just want to improve our home and make it more comfortable for our family. Thank you for your time and services to our city.
Thank you so much. I moved. I need a second. Seconded by Councilmember Jeruso. 5 yeas. Thank you.
We're now on top of page 33, a legislative grouping. The University Area Off-Street Park and Interim Zoning District Appeal of James Osborne and Monica L. Esperance, requesting to appeal the parking requirements of the University Area Off-Street Parking Interim Zoning District per Article 19 of the city's comprehensive zoning ordinance as it applies for property located at 1133 Lower Line Street. Motion M23-461 by Councilmember Jeruso, granting and approving the applicant's request for property located at 1133 Lower Line.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. This appeal is simply to create a large playroom in an existing climate-controlled garage. The applicants have owned the property since 2014, and my staff, I think, is playing with me because the last bullet point says, as a parent to 2 teenage girls, I understand the need to build a space just for your children and away from you. So kudos to recognizing the human condition. I've moved second.
Councilmember, we have one online.
Oh, sorry.
This is from the applicant. Dear Councilman, James Osborne, thank you for considering our request to appeal the parking requirements as it applies to our home 1133 Lower Line. We are a family of 4 looking to repurpose our attached garage for an unused storage space into a livable space for our children to watch TV and play video games. This request doesn't change anything about the community's available parking space. The attached garage hasn't been used for parking in decades and has been an air-conditioned storage room for us as homeowners for the last 9 years. We support the parking requirements in our neighborhood and appreciate the efforts to restrict homes becoming college residences, but we are not moving or renting our home as a college residence. We are simply a family trying to live our lives in a community that we've called home for many years.
Thank you, Ms. Curran. I've moved seconded by Councilmember Moreno. 5 yeas, no nays. Thank you.
We're now on top of page 34, legislative grouping, University Area Off-Street Park and Interim Zoning District Appeal of Nicole Weber, Weber Consulting, requesting to appeal the University Area Interim Off-Street Park and Zoning District for property located at 5517 South Russia Blaze Street. Motion M23-462 by Councilmember Jeruso, granting and approving the applicant's request for property located at 5517 South Russia Blaze Street.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. These are the final, hopefully, university area IZD appeals we have. This is a request to build a new single-family home, 5 bedrooms, 3.5 bathrooms. The size and setting of the property is similar to neighboring structures, and there will be 2 off-street parking spaces. So I'll move for approval. I know, Ms. Weber, you have a card. Would you like to make any comment? All right. Thank you very much. Seconded by Councilmember Green. No online comments.
Councilmember.
5 yeas, no nays. Thank you all so much.
We're now on top of page 35. We have a legislative grouping, zoning docket 3723 by HEP Holdings LLC, requesting a conditional use to permit a mini warehouse in an HMU historic urban neighborhood mixed-use district located on square 173, lots 1, 2, 3, and 4, or lots 12, 13, 14, and 15 in the 5th Municipal District, bounded by Newton Street, LB Landry Avenue, Diane Street, and LaBeouf Street. Municipal address 1531 Newton Street. The recommendation of the City Planning Commission being for approval, subject to 3 provisos. We have motion line over M23-389 by Councilmember King, denying the applicant's conditional use request on zoning docket 3723. We also have motion M23-476 by Councilmember King, approving and granting the applicant's conditional use request on zoning docket 3723 for the property located at 1531 Newton Street, subject to 3 provisos included in the City Planning Commission staff report.
Clerk,
Council member, this is a application for a conditional use to permit a new construction, commercial development that contains mini warehouse storage space. This is at the intersection of Newton Street and LB Landry Avenue, formerly a gas station. This would be a new construction development with retail space facing Newton, and then to the rear of that, mini warehouse storage space, which is regulated through the conditional use process, really based on the aesthetic impact that such facilities can have. In this case, because the face of the building is really a retail element and the storage space is to the rear where it's screened by that retail component, there is to be no negative impact, aesthetically at least. And the Planning Commission staff recommended approval. At the public hearing, there was some statements in support from the applicant, of course, but also statements in opposition from a neighborhood resident who cited concern that the facility would not meet the needs of residents of Algiers. Nonetheless, this is before you with an approval recommendation from the Planning Commission.
thank you. Mr. Neely, do you have any? No comment, no online comments. At the request of the Algiers Neighborhood President's Council, I defer consideration of this application until the last possible council meeting, which is today. The goal of this deferral was to afford the community and the applicant's team as much time as possible to engage and hopefully arrive at a win for all parties. Despite this good faith accommodation on our part, we have received reports from several members of the community that they still have not had an opportunity to review the revised design drawings or to engage the applicant's team prior to today. Earlier this week, we extended an invitation to the applicant's team to withdraw this request. However, today we have still not heard back. Accordingly, I feel my only choice is to deny this application at this time. With this, I move to withdraw motion 23-476 and move adoption of motion 23-389. Do I have a second? Second by Councilmember Jeruso. We have 5 yeas, no nays. The motion is adopted. Thank you.
Page 39, zoning docket 5623 has been deferred to October the 19th. On page 40, legislative grouping, zoning docket 6823, city council motion M23-318, requesting a conditional use to permit a small child care center in an SRS suburban single-family residential district located in St. Clair Garden on Square 8, lots 1 and 2 in the 5th Municipal District, bounded by General Maya Avenue, General Collins Avenue, Magellan Street, and Ridgeland Road. Municipal address 3869 General Maya Avenue. The recommendation of the City Planning Commission being for approval, subject to 1 waiver and 14 provisos. Motion M23-477 by Councilmember King, approving and granting the applicant's conditional use request on zoning docket 6823, subject to 1 waiver and 14 provisos included in the City Planning Commission staff report.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. City Planning Commission, you have the floor.
Thank you, council member. This is an application to expand the Little Schoolhouse Child Development Center on General Meyer Avenue in Algiers through the addition of a neighboring parcel, and that structure would be used to increase the school's capacity allowing childcare for infants under the age of 18 months. This is in a residential district that includes this part of Algiers, and childcare centers are regulated through the conditional use process because they are non-residential uses. Because this expands an existing facility, it doesn't really introduce a new non-residential activity into the context, but does address the need that the community has for increased childcare options. It is therefore acceptable to the Planning Commission, and the Planning Commission does recommend approval.
Thank you. We do have one comment card, Ms. Gina Stevens.
Good afternoon. I'm Gina Stevens. I'm the owner of the Little Schoolhouse, and I'm the one requesting for the building next door. We've been here 10 years. Well, I've been with the daycare for 10 years. And I have 3 calls today just for the infants that I'm having to put them on waiting lists because there is such a need. I'm just wanted to thank you for your consideration and taking the time to hear my request. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Stevens. You're very welcome. Well, I believe we need more childcare in the city. This application enjoys a unanimous recommendation of approval by the City Planning Commission. With this, I move approval. I move adoption. Properly sent by Councilmember Green. We have 5 yeas, no nays. One of those. Five yeas. I have to vote 6 yeas. 6 yeas, no nays. Thank you.
Top of page 41, legislative group and zoning docket 6923, city council motion 23-319, requesting a zoning change from an SB2 suburban pedestrian oriented corridor business district to an RRE rural residential estate district located in Satin Plantation, Square One Life Course, RB 25, RB 26, RB 27, or PT RBX in the 5th Municipal District bounded by Satin Road, English Term Parkway, Delacroix Road, and Willow Drive, municipal address 1600 Satin Road. The recommendation of City Planning Commission being for approval. We have motion number 23-478 by Councilmember King, approving and granting the applicant zoning change request for property located at 1600 Satin Road.
At this time, I'm going to ask that this be deferred to the next meeting.
Okay, this matter will be deferred to 1019. On the top of page 42, zoning docket 7023 has been deferred to 1019. Council members, we're gonna go back to page 39. Although the matter is being deferred to 1019, Councilmember Jeruso would like to hear the public comments.
Mr. Marsala?
Thank you, Joe. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
This obviously is concerning the potential development of West End Lakeshore Park. So West End Lakeshore Park, to my knowledge, was created by Act 209 in 1906 by the state of Louisiana to be used as a public park and amusement park. And that the FLUM, the Future Land Use Master Plan of New Orleans, until 2015, actually indicated that it was a park. And at that point, and numerous photos show it green. At that point, it became mixed use. So right now we look at what's being proposed is develop 4 acres of the park. And there's a bid that's a contract that's been issued to HR&A advisors. It'll cost about $200,000. It says it's to find developers for the park. And I think here we may be in our 4th study, because they talk about having a study as well, where we know the first 3 have come back saying the area is saturated. And I've supplied you guys with many of these documents and to go back to the history of it. We've surveyed the residents, 166 responded, roughly 95% want to save the 29 heritage oak trees, 80 to 95% want the park used for recreation because we lost Mickey Retif Play Spot. So we look at that, I would hope that this group, HRNA, didn't even know that they have to, about saving the heritage oak trees, and I doubt they'd be interested in a 2-acre potential development. So I hope as you consider moving forward here, it actually would make 4 multifamily housing units non-conforming because it's been a heavy residential area. And in fact, it came out the safest neighborhood in New Orleans just a few months ago out of 19 in a study. So it serves the high-rise condos that don't have yards. It serves the boathouse people. It serves the apartment people to keep it a park. There's a pelican habitat there. We've lost 21 out of 30, and it would be great to keep developing it. Thank you for your time, and thank you for letting me speak, Joe.
Thank you. You're welcome. I'm going to respond. That doesn't mean you get to. Your time is done. Your time is done.
Sure.
Your time is done. Yes,
Okay.
thank you. So, Mr. Marcella, I literally spoke a little while ago about factual materials that have been omitted from that discussion. I've now coined my own term for it, FAMO, factually accurate material omissions. This West End property has been used commercially since Katrina. And now what people are trying to do is make it their own private playground for themselves instead of having the commercial development that would rather residents would like instead. No part of OSS, the park area, is being touched here. Only the part that is being touched is the specific piece the opponents have complained about having housing. Now, everyone here knows I have not always agreed with CPC or HDLC on a number of issues. We just had one a few moments ago. But here, city planning said that we were right after conducting my own NPP that housing should be limited in this area. And so the new argument is that this area, instead of to be housing, is going to be for casinos and bars and video poker. I'm sure the next thing is going to be, we're going to build a mini Disneyland there. So all I'm telling the residents is that this has been commercial for a long time and that we are trying to work with everybody to get there. I've had 2 public meetings on this matter. We will continue to have public meetings on this matter. And the notion that that people are being deprived of housing is not supported by city planning or by the commissioners who tend to routinely vote in favor of it. So thank you.
Council members, we need to go.
All right.
So obviously there's a bear trap, but I'll stick my toe in it instead of my neck. I haven't done an NPP and I don't know the residents out there, and I certainly don't represent them, and they have not elected me. So everything I say here is sort of Michael Burnside centric. So I suppose it makes me a reply guy after all. But I want to point out a couple of things from my point of view. First point of view, I think, is the city needs hope for its poor. So the poor want to own. The poor want to join the property owning class. The poor are hopeful that they can rise above the status of poor, and they have been taught by generations of people that the way to do it is to own land. You can own property, then the system works for you. And if you do not own property, well, quite frankly, the system does not work for you. So home ownership should be one of the keys to any decision on any person's radar as to what is usable and suitable for any particular area in the whole city, because the poor don't want to be ghettoized. They don't want to be sent to certain parts of the city and not others. So even if only a small amount was left for the poor in good areas, I think a lot of tension might be relievable. So for me personally, when it says dwelling above ground floor is going to be denied in a S-LM Lake Area Marina District, for me, that is the rooms and the apartments and the residential areas above bars, the areas above restaurants, the areas that would be a second floor or a third floor or a fourth floor are no longer available in a good part of town. And I don't believe single-story buildings should be built anyway inside of a federal levy district that costs $14 billion. Everything should be at least 2 stories, and the second story should be residential. We need more elevators and we need fewer interstates. We need people who are here 24/7 and don't come visit for 8 hours and then leave.
Thank you, Mr. Burnside.
Council members, we need to go back to page 41 and we need to reconsider the deferral for zoning docket 6923. So could I please get a vote to reconsider the deferral?
I move to reconsider. Do I have a second?
Okay.
All right, probably a second. All in favor? We have five ayes, 5 yeas.
Okay. Now, you could go back and if you want to rediscuss it and then vote on it.
No, Mr. Crowe, it's just a simple mix up, but we're good. So you want to read,
Okay, yeah, you're moving forward. This is a zoning change application affecting property located at the intersection of Stanton Road and English Turn Parkway. It is requested by the property owner so that he can develop the approximately 15-acre property with his home. Despite the fact that it is in a largely rural and residential context, it has for decades had commercial zoning that doesn't actually match the development pattern of the area. And so he is proposing a zoning change to the residential designation that includes most of the surrounding rural area so that he can develop this as his home. This is consistent with the development pattern of that portion of Lower Coast. It is consistent with the master plan, and therefore the Planning Commission recommends approval.
thank you, Mr. Burnside.
Guess the bear trap gets 2 toes instead of just one. So once upon a time, a tired old Michael Burnside walked across the street, bridge, and the bridge was in Algiers, and the bridge was over what he thinks is the intercoastal waterway, but he won't swear to it. It was a long bridge. It had sort of an S to it, and there were no sidewalks on it, and the bus wouldn't go across it. But there was a public meeting for the City Planning Commission over the bridge at a Buddhist temple. And it's the only time I've been in Lower Coast Algiers. And I must say it's an odd situation there because it is rural. It's not really urban or even suburban. And the people there in English Turn did not want certain development.
Mr. Burnside, this is a different matter.
It is.
It is. This is an individual trying to build a single family home.
On 15 acres.
Yes, that he purchased.
Okay. So my point is that I'll sit down and be quiet because it's a different issue, but 15 acres for one house isn't going to solve the affordable housing problem. That's for sure.
All right. At this time, they make a
We have
motion to
some-
approve.
Excuse me, we have some online
We
comments.
have some online comments.
The first one is from Lee DuPont, who says the Lower Coast Algiers Association wholeheartedly approves of zoning 1600 Stanton Road to RRE. We feel that this is the most appropriate zoning for this property. It recognizes the need of the community, the needs of the community and the lack of infrastructure for more intense developments. Nicole Perry says, I support this zoning change. Thank you. Jane Durancelet says support the change in zoning of this 15-acre parcel is completely in accord with appropriate development for Algiers Lower Coast. I welcome this residential land use for our community and look forward to further zoning changes that take into consideration our limited infrastructure. And the last online comment is from Sharon Casey. She says, I support this change to RRE. It's absolutely necessary given the lack of infrastructure, water, sewer, adequate roads, police, fire, etc. in this isolated and rural area of the parish. This change is critical for the safety and well-being of current residents of the Lower Coast, and I applaud those who suggested it and those of you who vote in support of it.
Thank you. At this time, make a motion to approve. Second by Councilman Green. Five yeas, no nays. We're good. Thank you.
We're now on top of page 42, zoning docket 7023 has, that's okay. What? we're going to page 43, a legislative grouping. Zoning docket 7123, Crew of Tucks, Inc. Requesting a conditional use to permit a Mardi Gras den in a C1 General Commercial District located on the entireties of squares 140, 148, as well as the former portion of Thalia Street between the two squares, all of which are bounded by Washington Avenue, South Lopez Street, South Rendon Street, and Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard. Municipal addresses 4400 Washington Avenue and 1300 South Rendon Street. The recommendation of the City Planning Commission being for approval, subject to 3 provisos. We have motion M 23-470 by Councilmember Harris, approving and granting the applicant's conditional use request on zoning docket number 7123, subject to 3 provisos set forth by the City Planning Commission.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Stephen, can you brief us on the CPC report?
Sure, really quickly, this is a proposal to expand the existing Crew of Tucks Mardi Gras den in Central City. The property is zoned commercially and Mardi Gras dens are technically industrial uses, and so it does require council approval to expand. You know, Mardi Gras dens are large things, but they're not particularly active and not particularly impactful. And so adding this allows Tucks to kind of expand and accommodate what they're doing. It doesn't really affect the commercial context. And given that, the Planning Commission recommends approval.
Great. Are there any online comments? I'll go ahead and move. I need a second. Seconded by Councilmember Jeruso. Do we have enough people here?
I'll do my best.
Thank you.
We're now on top of page 44. We have ordinance calendar number 34,241 by Councilmember Jeruso. An ordinance to amend and reordain the unclassified pay plan for officers and employees in the unclassified service of the city of New Orleans in accordance with section 3-118 and 4-2061G of the Home Rule Charter of the city of New Orleans to establish new titles for existing positions of Chief of EMS positions U3005 and Deputy Chief of EMS U3006. To change the titles to Medical Director U3005 and Chief of EMS U3006 to establish the new salary ranges for these classifications within the unclassified pay plan. Otherwise, to provide with respect thereto.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mr. Burnside, I saw you had a comment on this item number 19 about EMS.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. We've got each other.
Yeah, I have a personal relationship with a councilman, not even my own. So EMS, I came up here and talked about it before. I have some sort of notes to myself somewhere. If I could find them, if I trusted my own mind, I would find them. But basically the EMS has been up here before and I'm going to rely on my memory, which is not to be trusted. So the current understanding in my mind is the EMS wants to have 2 bosses, one boss bigger and more powerful than the other boss. The top boss's maximum salary is going to be like $350,000. The second boss is slightly under the original boss, is maxing out at like half that, $160,000. So I got several problems with this, one of which is, first of all, very theoretical, but something I really do believe in seriously, which is I don't believe any city employee should make more money than the mayor. So if you're going to raise the superintendent of police, or you're going to raise the superintendent of EMS, or you're going to raise people, their salaries, commensurate raises need to be done at least to the mayor. It's a matter of theory to me. In democracy, the boss in a capitalistic system makes more money than the underlings. That's the way it is. And the mayor's the boss. The next thing is the amount of money that the boss makes more than the subordinates shouldn't be double. The idea that one boss who's a little tiny bit above a second boss is worth twice as much money is just not my experience in life. The second boss maybe makes 10% less, maybe 15% less, but not half. Half is a hierarchical statement that the second boss really needs to kiss butt and obey and not really a boss. From my personal experience in industry and other places. So the second boss should make more money, the top boss should make less money. The next thing that I want to bring up is the idea that the superintendent of police, again, working off memory because I don't trust myself anymore, is making maybe $350,000 a year. And we've got the superintendent now, I don't think that's the right name, but superintendent of EMS making $350,000 a year. And they boss very different departments, very different requirements, and hugely different sizes. The police person is bossing maybe 10 times as much as the EMS person, and yet getting paid the same money. Where I come from, that's just not rational. You don't have that many underlings and try to keep track of that many people and get paid the same amount of money. And the last thing is I have problems with EMS. And I talk about EMS a lot and I go to different places. About a year ago, somebody in EMS informed me that they were down to one functional ambulance. And at the time, I didn't bring up the subject, but what are the people doing who don't have an ambulance but are going to work? What are they doing? Entered my mind. And this was now a year ago, but I personally witnessed in my neighborhood an ambulance from an Indian reservation in Oklahoma. I think it was Osage Indian Nation down here. And I talked to them about why in the world were they in New Orleans doing EMS stuff. And they informed me that they were part of a federally funded program because we had dipped below some sort of federal mandate on the number of ambulances that we were allowed to get by with. So there are a lot of things here that I don't think are being addressed and that should be addressed. You don't give somebody $350,000 and then just smile and let them walk out the door.
Can I respond to that, Mr.
Yes,
Russo?
please.
All right, so I think there's some sufficient facts that are missing in your analysis, Mr. Burnside. When I was approached regarding this salary, like you initially, I was very taken aback by the amount. I think there's two considerations that are not being put on the table. This position requires that the individual be a doctor, a medical doctor of some sort. And what I posited to the people who were making the proposal, including on civil services, what do they pay a staff position at a teaching hospital? The amount of money that is being proposed for this position is what they pay a full-time physician who has singular employment in a teaching hospital. The amount of money might seem egregious to you, but one could easily state that a staff position at a teaching hospital that is responsible for several fellows, maybe a dozen, 2 dozen, 3 dozen, that the salary for someone who is over emergency medical services should be at least commensurate with that. Another concession that was requested by myself and Budget Chair Geruso is that we as a council are moving away from allowing anyone aggressively to have more than singular employment if you are the head of a department. So additionally, the head of EMS, this is their singular employment. So if we have someone operating in a government position, we are trying to make sure this is an attractive position to fill for other people who could be similarly situated in other government positions with a similar amount of people that are being managed. I think that is reasonable in context. The reality is that the mayor of the city of New Orleans is not the CEO of a corporation. They are an individual who's an elected person in a political position. When you look at the bureaucracy of any given government, part of the challenge we've had as a city, and I lean on my friend, Mr. Green here, as I say this, is that you're trying to fill jobs. And if a job has a salary that can be made by individuals in public government employment, you should try to make salaries that will attract people who are similarly situated to take those roles. It's not the same as being an elected official. Elected officials, by the nature of our position and term limits, are transient. You want to have a bureaucracy of experienced people that want to stay in governmental work. So I appreciate your position, but I think that if you look at this salary increase subjectively without all the facts in front of you, as I did originally, it does seem very egregious. But when you look at it with all of the facts in front of you, in particular, what someone with a medical degree could make in other governmental employment with that many people, it's apples to apples, not apples to oranges. Thank you.
Thank you. And just for the record, you will complete and close that loop with item number 21 too. Yeah. So, all right, I move for adoption of calendar number 34241, seconded by Councilmember King. 5 yeas, no nays.
At the bottom of the page, ordinance calendar number 34,277 has been deferred to October 19th. On top of page 45. Ordinance. I'm just trying to take care of something before. We're gonna go to page 45. We have ordinance calendar number 34,284 by council members Morale and Jeruso. Without them? And ordinance to establish section 62-4 of the Code of the City of New Orleans relative to outside employment for the medical director of emergency medical services and otherwise to provide with respect thereto.
Thank you. As I said previously, part of the consideration and increasing that salary in recognition of the fact that this is a full-time employment of a medical doctor in this position is to eliminate the possibility of outside employment, because if one can supplement their employment, that must always be taken in consideration with setting a salary. This ends any ability to supplement said employment. I see we have a comment card.
So, Budget Chairman Jeruso was kind enough to encourage me to attend the very budget committee meetings. I don't normally attend committee meetings. And in the process, I got a lot of paperwork and I happened to read a lot of it. The city employs more than one doctor. The city employs more than two doctors. Depending on how we read and how we remember, the city employs more than three doctors. Doctors make $265,000 a year from the city. That's what they make. So by giving somebody $350,000 a year, you're not employing a doctor, you're employing a manager of doctors, you're employing a manager of EMS, you're employing a manager of paraprofessionals. You're not really employing a doctor. Doctors run $265,000 because we employ them, we have them. The other 100,000 is for somebody to be a boss, to manage people. And given that we only had one ambulance a year ago, I'm not comfortable or happy that we're paying an extra $100,000 to fill a position.
With all due respect, those other doctors are not restricted from having outside employment, doing stuff like consultation and the like. I appreciate we disagree on this issue, Mr. Burnside, but I think you're wrong. I'll move for adoption.
At the bottom of the page, ordinance calendar number 34,294 has been deferred to October 19 and referred to the Budget Committee. On top of page 46, ordinance calendar number 34,295 has been deferred to October 19 and referred to the Budget Committee. Page 47, a legislative grouping, ordinance calendar number 34,308 has been deferred to October 19, and the amendment to 34,308 has been deferred to October 19. On page 48, ordinance calendar number 34,363 has been deferred to October 19. On top of page 49, all matters, the legislative group and ordinance calendar number 34,385 has been deferred to October 19. Motion line over M23-426 has been deferred to October 19.
Madam Clerk, 1 second for a personal privilege. On these matters, this grouping, I want to make a couple of things clear. These are the short-term rental ordinances. The council remains aware and monitoring the activity at federal court regarding these. I would say 2 things for the record. One, the council, I speak for my colleagues, remains concerned, especially in light of the last hearing. There were some concerns that were brought directly by the court, not by the plaintiffs, as issues to be addressed. I remain concerned as the lead author of this ordinance that there seems to be a conflation and an addition by the court of other considerations that were not made in the filing. I think that it has the potential to confuse the issues at hand. We do know there is a hearing on November 2nd. A council member will be present. And at the conclusion of that hearing, as we wait to see how it turns out, the council remains poised and prepared that if it is found that our previous legislation is insufficient, we will take the next step, which we have all repeatedly said, which is that if we cannot regulate short-term rentals, then there will be no residential short-term rentals. Thank you.
On top of page 50, motion line over M23-427 has been deferred to October 19. At the bottom of the page, ordinance calendar number 34,392 by Councilmember Green by request. An ordinance to approve and authorize the mayor of the city of New Orleans acting by and through the New Orleans Aviation Board to enter into a lease agreement with British Airways PLC, a non-signatory airline operating at the Louis Armstrong New Orleans International Airport under circumstances in which a solicitation and selection process is not required by law and otherwise to provide with respect thereto.
To the members of the public and to the members of the council, I certainly always like to speak up on very good news. This is, as you know, the city council is required to approve leases involving the Louis Armstrong New Orleans International Airport. And it is, in this particular case, this is a non-signatory airline which gets special lease agreements with British Airways. But just for background purposes for the public, in 2017, British Airways began year-round air service from our airport to London, which was New Orleans' first scheduled nonstop flight to Europe since 1980. Yay. During COVID-19, British Airways suspended service due to the travel restrictions. They are now back, and this lease agreement will allow for its operations. British Airways is back. I know that's going to be the top headline tomorrow on the front page of the Advocate, right? He's not even listening. British Airways is back. I move for approval of this lease. Seconded by Councilmember Jeruso. Members, vote your machine. Thank you very much. Well, 5 yeas, no nays. A good news story. Thank you.
On top of page 54, ordinance calendar number 34,418 by Councilmember Green. An ordinance to temporarily waive certain fees, permit fees, and requirements within and around Melanie Rec Center North Gym, located at 5420 Franklin Avenue, New Orleans, Louisiana, 70122, in conjunction with Families Helping Families of Greater New Orleans on September 29, 2023, at 7 p.m. to 12 a.m. to specify the durations and boundaries of said waiver and to provide otherwise with respect thereto.
I'm so pleased when organizations that have names such as Families Helping Families want to use city facilities aren't designed to generate a lot of money. I have a funny feeling that Mr. Burnside is going to comment and Mr. Burnside. we're good. All right, I move. Members, vote your machines. 5 yeas, no days. It's approved.
We're now gonna go back to page 51. We have ordinance calendar number 34,393 has been deferred to October 19th. At the bottom of the page, ordinance calendar number 34,394 by Councilmember Harris by request. An ordinance authorizing the mayor of the city of New Orleans to enter into a cooperative endeavor agreement between the city of New Orleans and the National World War II Museum, Inc. for a term greater than 1 year for public purpose of improving pedestrian walkways along Andrew Higgins Drive, including enhancements within part of the museum operation corridor for the benefit of and enjoyment by New Orleans citizens and visitors, and to encourage convention center participants to explore the historic warehouse district and the museum operation corridor in the city of New Orleans as more fully detailed in a cooperative endeavor agreement form titled Exhibit A, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I'm most excited about this as Councilmember Green is for British Airways. This motion approves the CEA with the World War II Museum for sidewalk improvements, which include pavement restoration, reconstruction of sidewalks, installation of roadwork lighting, and curb modifications, including curb extensions and tree plantings. DDD supports the project and plans to leverage grant funding for placemaking signs and other possible amenities along the improved corridor. The World War II Museum is fully funding the design phase of the project, and construction cost is valued at approximately $4 million, but the project is federally funded 80-20. Are there any online or public comments? JP Morrell, I need a vote.
I'm still here though.
Okay,
Just for this last one.
all right. 5 votes, thank you.
On top of page 52, we have ordinance calendar number 34,402 by Councilmember Harris. An ordinance to amend section 58-36 of the Code of the City of New Orleans to merge certain precincts with less than 300 registered voters with adjacent precincts in accordance with the Louisiana Revised Statute 18-532. To correctly reflect the boundary of St. Louis Street Canal where applicable, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto, and there is an amendment by Councilmember Harris. Number 1, on page 2, line 20, insert the following after Cortez Street to the center line and before where the St. Louis Street Canal intersects with Bayou St. John of St. Louis Street to the point. That is the amendment.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I've moved on the amendment. Seconded by Councilmember Morrell. 5 yeas. And then as amended, the registrar of voters alerted council that we have 4 precincts with fewer than the permitted number of voters. This ordinance does not do anything except merge the precincts and identifies the new boundaries of those merged precincts. It does not consolidate any precincts. Consolidation is already approved by the Secretary of State, and any changes it entails is managed by the commissioner on the ground. The affected precincts are in wards 4, 9, and 12. And I've asked that the maps be linked to today's council agenda so everyone can help visualize the changes. And this will be for the upcoming election. Seconded by Councilmember Druso. 5 yeas, thank you.
At the bottom of the page, ordinance calendar number 34,404 has been withdrawn. On top of page 53, ordinance calendar number 34,405 has been withdrawn. Ordinance calendar number 34,406 by Councilmember Harris by request. An ordinance authorizing the mayor of the city of New Orleans to enter into a cooperative endeavor agreement between the city of New Orleans and Total Community Action, Inc. for a term greater than 1 year for the public purpose of reducing food insecurity and improving the overall health of households in targeted low-income city neighborhoods as more fully set forth in the cooperative endeavor agreement made a part hereof titled Exhibit 1 and otherwise to provide with respect thereto.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. This ordinance approves a CEA with Total Community Action to provide services related to food insecurity and targeting low-income neighborhoods around the city. Let me say, for the record, that we've lost a Save-A-Lot that was on Claiborne Avenue, rendering portions of Central City and Hoffman Triangle food deserts. And so we need to make sure that we have community partners who are addressing food insecurity, especially as we're seeing grocery stores in neighborhoods that need them dwindle. So I'll go ahead and make the motion. Seconded by Councilmember King. 5 yeas, thank you.
At the bottom of the page, ordinance calendar number 34,411 by Councilmember Morrell. An ordinance to amend and reordain section 70-10 of the Code of the City of New Orleans to include contracts for the legal services among the agreements requiring execution by the council president and otherwise to provide with respect thereto.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. This simply, there's been some question over the last couple of years in regards to who we have engaged with legal services and who we haven't. And we tend to find out well after the fact when legal services have been engaged on the city's behalf, representing both the administration and the council. And this simply inserts us in the process, the hiring process to require our signature. I would move for adoption. Second by Councilmember Moreno, please vote your machines. 5 yeas, no nays. The motion's adopted.
On top of page 54, we have ordinance calendar number 34,417 by Councilmember King by request. An ordinance authorizing the mayor of the city of New Orleans to enter into a cooperative endeavor agreement between the city of New Orleans and the New Orleans Humane Law and Rescue LLC for a term greater than 1 year for the public purpose of ensuring that the city has animal control services, particularly during an emergency, as more fully set forth in the cooperative endeavor agreement and made a part hereof titled Exhibit 1 and otherwise to provide with respect thereto.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. This CEA provides for animal control services for the city, including during an emergency. And the CEA carries a maximum compensation of $1.8 million. This time, make a motion to adopt. Seconded by Councilmember Moreno. 5 yeas, motion is adopted.
On top of page 55, we have motion M23-446 by council members Jeruso, Moreno, Morrell, Green, and Thomas. Submitted for council approval, the following amendment to the classified pay plan, police, NCIC, as adopted by the Civil Service Commission at its meeting of September 20th, 2023, in accordance with Article 10, Section 10 of the Constitution of Louisiana, that the amendment to the classified pay plan is approved to be effective October 8th, 2023.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Just one housekeeping matter before we go through all of these in order. Good to see civil service here. Item number 43 is going to be deferred until 10:19. Is that right?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. All right. So let's just get started in order with item number 38.
Thank you, council members. Amy Trepanier, Civil Service Director, and I have with me Tia Harrison from my staff today. She works very closely with Mr. Hagman on class and comp matters. So our first item is an expansion of the existing 5% special rate of pay for police department employees who are certified on the National Crime Information Center program and who use that on a routine basis. That's an existing special rate of pay, and it's being expanded to employees in the classification of police tech training.
All right, I've moved for approval. I have a second by Councilmember King. Members, please vote your machines. Five yeas, no nays.
At the bottom of the page, we have motion M 23-447 by council members Jeruso, Moreno, Morel, Green, and Thomas, submitting for council approval the following amendments to the classified pay plan, Police Crime Laboratory, as adopted by the Civil Service Commission at its meeting of September 20th, 2023, in accordance with Article 10, Section 10 of the Constitution of Louisiana, that the amendments to the classified pay plan are approved to be effective October 8th, 2023.
Thank you, Mr. Pagnay.
Council members, as you know, NOPD was able to hire a crime lab director earlier this year, and she is doing the heavy lift of reestablishing the DNA function at NOPD, as well as getting the crime lab certified. We want to assist her with that heavy lift by creating a deputy director of the crime lab position. And so this establishes a crime lab deputy director at the hiring rate of $113,261. In order to fit that position in between the director's position and the DNA supervisors, we had to bump up the director as well by 5% in order to wedge it in there. So it establishes the new class.
Makes sense. I think I moved for approval. I don't know if it got, or do I need to do it again? I'll do it again. Seconded by Councilmember King.
One more.
5 yeas, no nays.
We're now on top of page 56. We have motion M 23-448 by council members Jeruso, Moreno, Morel, Green, and Thomas, submitting for council approval the following amendments to the classified pay plan, safety and permits, hiring rates, floodplain program manager series, as adopted by the Civil Service Commission at its meeting of September 20th, 2023, in accordance with Article 10, Section 10 of the Constitution of Louisiana, that the amendments to the classified pay plan are approved to be effective October 8th, 2023.
Mr. Pagnay.
So this establishes new hiring rates for the assistant floodplain program manager and the floodplain program manager positions. The assistant position, we've been recruiting for that position for over a year now. We've had one qualified applicant. That applicant was hired and came and left within 2 months. So we've been unsuccessful at the present rate, basically for over a year in filling this. The last time we recruited for this position in 2017, we had 12 qualified applicants. So we've lost pace with the market in terms of filling this position, and the hiring rate attempts to catch up with the market in order to recruit and retain people for these positions.
All right, thank you very much. Seconded by Councilmember Moreno. Please vote your machines. 5 yeas, no nays. Thank you.
At the bottom of the page, we have motion M 23-449 by council members Jeruso, Moreno, Morel, Green, and Thomas, submitting for council approval the following amendments to the classified pay plan, public works, hiring rates, taxi cab hiring rates, as adopted by the Civil Service Commission at its meeting of September 20th, 2023, in accordance with Article 10, Section 10 of the Constitution of Louisiana, that the amendments to the classified pay plan are approved to be effective October 8th, 2023.
So this is similar to the previous position. The position has been vacant, and we are raising the hiring rates in the hope to attract additional candidates for the position.
Wonderful. I move, seconded by Vice President Moreno. Five yeas, no nays.
We're on the top of page 57. We have motion M 23-450 by council members Jeruso, Moreno, Morel, Green, and Thomas, submitting for council approval the following amendments to the classified pay plan, public works, hiring rates, construction inspector, and new classification, as adopted by the Civil Service Commission at its meeting of September 20th, 2023, in accordance with Article 10, Section 10 of the Constitution of Louisiana, that the amendments to the classified pay plan are approved to be effective October 8th, 2023.
So for this job classification, these individuals inspect internal projects, public works projects. As you recall, very recently, we increased the rates for our external building inspectors. And this is sort of the part B of that, is to increase the rates for our internal inspectors in the hopes that the department can rely less on contractors to perform this work.
Wonderful. Thank you. I move for approval. Seconded by Councilmember Moreno. Waiting on one more. 5 yeas, no nays. Thank you all so much. I think that's it.
At the bottom of the page, motion M 23-451 has been deferred to October 19th.
Did we have 458?
Yep. Can we take that up, Madam Clerk, since we're here right now?
On page 59, we have motion M 23-458 by council members Jeruso, Moreno, Morel, Green, and Thomas. Submitted for council approval, the following amendment to the classified pay plan, library bilingual pay, as adopted by the Civil Service Commission at its meeting of September 20th, 2023, in accordance with Article 10, Section 10 of the Constitution of Louisiana, that the amendment to the classified pay plan is approved to be effective October 8th, 2023.
This is an expansion of the existing special rate of pay of 5% for bilingual speakers who act as translators for their department. Presently, this special rate of pay is in effect at the police department and the fire department. The library has asked to be added as eligible for this premium. And so it's for people who speak foreign languages, as well as people who are proficient in American Sign Language and act as translators due to the high public content at the library. The library would like to be included in this special rate of pay as well.
Thank you. Mr. Burnside had a comment on this one. Oh, it's on the fire? Okay.
Mr. Burnside's tired. I think President Morrell is much younger than I am and took me to task, but I'll bounce back here someday. Bilingualism is interesting to me for lots of different reasons, one of which is the U.S. Army was kind enough to teach me Russian. So I spent a year of my life in the Defense Language Institute when I was a child at age 18. And it's a very long story and I won't bore all of you with you, but I am in favor of bilingualism. I've lost my ability to speak Russian. I no longer retain it. But I had to do a whole bunch of hoop jumping in order to not be kicked out and become a mortar base plate carrier, as they threatened me one day. You will carry the 60-pound mortar base plate if you don't pass this test. That's an incentive. Do they have tests? I mean, can we hear a little bit about this bilingual program? Does everybody get to apply for it? Does only captains get to apply for it? I mean, we don't necessarily need that now, and I know that's probably a correct place for a committee meeting, but it would be nice to know a little bit more about it because you might get more people applying for it if they were aware it existed.
Thank you.
So we're civil service. We love tests. We have a test. We have a vendor that provides a test. People call in and take the test. So.
Yeah. Okay. Move for approval. Second by Councilmember Moreno. 5 yeas, no nays. Thank you for being here.
At the bottom of the page, motion M 23-463 has been deferred to October 19th and referred to the Government Affairs Committee. We're going to go back to page 58. We have motion M 23-454 by Councilmember King by request, adding the president of the council as a signatory to a service agreement between the city of New Orleans and Resuscitation Quality Improvement Partners, LLC, and authorizing the president of the council to sign a service agreement between the city of New Orleans and the Resuscitation Quality Improvement Partners, LLC, Exhibit A.
One moment, Madam Clerk. We will defer this from Madam Clerk to the next meeting. Thank you.
Okay. at the bottom of the page. So this motion M 23-454 has been deferred to October 19th. We have motion M 23-455 by Councilmember King by request, adding the president of council as a signatory to the professional service contract between the city of New Orleans and HTC Enterprise Enterprise LLC, doing business as Homestead Title, and authorizing the president of the council to sign a professional service contract between the city of New Orleans and HTC Enterprise LLC, doing business as Homestead Title.
We was having a sidebar, Madam Clerk. All right, Tom, make a motion to approve. Probably second. By Councilman Druso, 5 yeas, no nays. And Madam Clerk, we'll go back to M 23-454.
Okay. We're gonna reconsider that deferral, please.
Yes, I make a motion to reconsider the deferral. Probably second by Councilman Druso. I make a motion to approve. 5 yeas, no nays.
Okay, now you need to adopt it. You gotta adopt it now.
Make a motion to adopt. Second by Councilman Morrell. 5 yeas, no nays.
We're now gonna go to page 60, all matters. Motion M 23-464 has been deferred to October 19th and referred to the Governmental Affairs Committee. Motion M 23-465 has been deferred to October 19th and referred to the Governmental Affairs Committee. Motion M 23-466 has been deferred to October 19th and referred to the Governmental Affairs Committee, I'm sorry. On top of page 61, motion M 23-467 has been deferred to October 19th and referred to the Governmental Affairs Committee. At the bottom of the page, we have motion M 23-472 by Councilmember Druso, directing the City Planning Commission to conduct a public hearing to consider amending ordinance number MCS 4264 as amended by ordinance number 26,413 MCS as amended, the comprehensive zoning ordinance of the city of New Orleans to amend and reordain Article 18 overlay zoning district to establish a new overlay district named the University Area Design Overlay. The intent of which is to provide design advisory committee review for new residentially zoned structures or major renovations or expansions of residentially zoned structures located in the university area. That being the area generally bounded by South Claiborne Avenue in the north, Nashville Avenue in the east, St. Charles Avenue in the south, and South Carrollton Avenue in the south. The university area design overlay requirements are as follows. The development plan and design review is required for any enlargement or addition of 10% or more of the existing square footage in accordance with the thresholds of applicable in section 4.5, as well as any additional thresholds of applicability of the university area design overlay district. Number 2, development plan and design review shall only apply to property zone HURD1, HURD2, HURS, HURM1, and HURM2 as determined by the City Planning Commission and the Department of Safety and Permanence. Design shall be compatible in scale, materials, street level uses, and spatial relationships with existing developments. Number 4, any new structure or increase of square footage shall not exceed a maximum building height of 30 feet with a maximum of 2 stories. Number 5, waiver of these design requirements may be considered by the Board of Zoning Adjustment.
Madam Clerk, I'm sorry, my legislative matters were so long today. I appreciate you reading all of that. Members, as we talked about earlier with doubles to dorms, there is no silver bullet. But to that end, and at the suggestion and working with City Planning Commission, I've asked CPC to consider adding a small portion of the university area to the design review process. We partially modeled that after the existing Bou Carré design. This review allows a height restriction and review of enlargements more than 10% of the total existing square footage, and it's only for residentially zoned properties. So move for approval, seconded by Councilmember Harris. Five yeas, no nays. Thank you.
At the bottom of page 62, we have motion M23-479 by Council Members King, Jeruso, and Moreno, directing the City Planning Commission to conduct a public hearing to consider hours of operation and density for parklets that are on blocks that are not zone commercial or mixed use from corner to corner, and to consider amendments to the comprehensive zoning ordinance number 4,264 MCS as amended by ordinance number 26,413 MCS and subsequent amendments to amend the district column associated with the permitted temporary use for parklets in table 21-3 in section 21.8.c and to amend section 21.8.c.16.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Okay, yeah.
Council members, because my husband's business owns parklets, I need to recuse myself from this.
Our stakeholder engagement on the future of parklets have been exhaustive. This text amendment motion takes into consideration the goals of parklets proponents by directing the CPC to consider liberalizing certain provisions of our CZO. By the same token, we have heard the concerns of parklet skeptics in our community. Accordingly, we have also directed the CPC to consider reduced density and hours of operation for parklets situated on blocks that include residential zoning districts. With this, I move adoption. Second by Councilmember Moreno. We have 4 yeas and 1 recusal.
Councilmember, we have motion M23-480 by Councilmember Harris, authorizing the president of the council to sign the cooperative endeavor agreement between the Office of Community Development and Start Corporation, Inc. And we have 3 suspensions we have to vote on, where the first suspension is on suspending the rule of 57. Now we need to suspend the rules to receive this. Now we need to suspend the rules to add it to the agenda. And now y'all could discuss it and vote on it.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Council members, we are taking up this motion today to approve a corrected version of the CEA between the city and Start Corporation for the operation of the low barrier shelter. Adam, can you go ahead and brief us on this?
Certainly, council member. This was approved in July. It wasn't controversial or problematic. The version of the agreement that we approved said that it would be for a term of 1 year to begin on March 1st, ending on December 31st. Someone in the law department decided that that was actually an irreconcilable conflict because that's actually 10 months and not a year. That was never brought to our attention until yesterday. Meanwhile, I think everyone's been under the impression that this contract was signed. The vendor has been performing work. So the urgency here is that we need to correct this very technical error so that these folks can get paid for work that they've done. All it does is reduce the word 1 year to 10 months so that it matches March 1st to December 31st.
Thank you, Adam. And I just want to reiterate that that Start Corporation has been performing work without getting paid by the city because of this error in the law department. So again, if there's anything that we can get done as a council together, it really is to improve procurement processes, the way that contracts are routed, and making sure that our vendors actually get paid for work that they perform. So I will move. Seconded by Jeruso. And hopefully this can get routed and signed quickly so that these invoices can be processed. Thank you.
Council members, we need to suspend the rules to go to ordinances on first reading.
I make a motion to suspend the rules, properly sent by Councilmember Harris.
Yay.
One more vote.
Yes, so we can go to first readings.
Ordinance on first readings, ordinance calendar number 34,419 by Councilmember King by request. An ordinance to authorize the mayor of the city of New Orleans to enter into a cooperative endeavor agreement between the city of New Orleans and the Foundation of Louisiana, collectively referred to as parties, for a term greater than 1 year for the public purpose of providing fiscal sponsorship for the National League of Cities, Southern Cities, and Economic Inclusion Initiative, of which the city of New Orleans is a part, as of more fully detailed in the CEA form attached here to as Exhibit A, and otherwise to provide respect thereto. Ordinance calendar number 34,420 by Council Members Morrell and Harris, an ordinance to amend and reordain Article number 19 of the Comprehensive Zoning Ordinance, ordinance number 4264 MCS, as amended by ordinance number 26,413 MCS, and subsequent amendments to establish a new interim zoning district to be named the Commercial Short-Term Rental Interim Zoning District, the intent of which is to prohibit short-term rental, commercial, and hostile as allowable usage within all areas of the city, and to limit the development of timeshares with the following considerations: instituting a cap of no more than 1 unit of 25% of the total dwelling unit on a lot or a single building constructed across lot lines, whichever is greater to be permitted by the included within the timeshare plan within the timeshare building. And in the CBD 5 urban core neighborhood lower intensity mixed use district, a timeshare building shall only be permitted when the total number of dwelling units is at least 10, and the mandatory inclusionary zoning regulations of Article 28 are triggered, and the affordable housing unit is provided as required by law. This cap shall not apply to the Vucare Entertainment District, to structures which front on Canal Street between the Mississippi River and Rampart Street, and the Educational Campus District, Medical Campus District, Life Science District, and the Maritime Industrial District, Commercial and Recreational Sub-District, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. Zoning docket 6223. Ordinance calendar 34,421 by Councilmember Harris, and ordinance to amend and reordain the use tables in Articles 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and 17 of the Comprehensive Zoning Ordinance, ordinance number 4264 MCS, as amended by ordinance number 26413 MCS, and subsequent amendments to permit domestic protection shelters and emergency shelters by right as institutional uses in all zoning districts where multiple family dwellings are permitted, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. Zoning docket 6323. Ordinance calendar 34,422 by Councilmember Harris, and ordinance to establish a conditional use to permit a neighborhood commercial establishment in an HURM1 historic urban multifamily residential district on square 261, lot 1 in the 4 municipal district bounded by Drive Street, 2nd Street, Baron Street, and 3rd Street. municipal address 1834 Second Street and 2508 through 2512 Drive Street, and otherwise to provide respects thereto, zoning docket 6423. Ordinance calendar 34,423 by Councilmember King, and ordinance to affect the zoning change from an SRS suburban single-family residential district to an SB1 suburban business district on square 2, lot 27, or part lot 27 in the 5th Municipal District bounded by General Maya Avenue, Casimir Street, Culver Street, and Zion Street, municipal address 6505 General Maya Avenue in 2018, Casimir Street, and otherwise to provide respect thereto. Zoning docket 6623. Ordinance calendar 34,424 by Councilmember Green, and ordinance to establish a conditional use to permit a community center in the HURD2 Historic Urban Two-Family Residential District on square 766, lot 220, lot 23 and 24 in the 3rd Municipal District, bounded by North Roman Street, New Orleans Avenue, North Durban Street, St. Bernard Avenue, and 7th Street, municipal address 1660 North Roman Street, and otherwise to provide respect thereto. Zoning docket 6723. Ordinance calendar 34,425 by Councilmember King by request, and ordinance to ratify the execution and delivery by the New Orleans Building Corporation of the Third Amendment to Third Amendment and the restatement of lease, which is attached here to as Exhibit A, and which amends the Third Amendment and restatement of lease dated September 25th, 1989, as amended by the First Amendment to restate of lease and servitude dated September 29th, 1989, and the amendment of the lease agreement dated February 17, 2000, collectively the Mercer lease pursuant to which Mercer Realties and Investment Companies, a Louisiana corporation, leases to NOBC certain premises located at the corner of Iberville and Dauphine Street in the French Quarter of New Orleans, as more particularly described in the Mercer lease, the lease premises, and otherwise to provide respect thereto. Ordinance calendar 34,426 by Councilmember Jeruso, and ordinance to amend ordinance number 29,265 MCS as amended entitled an ordinance providing an operating budget of revenues for the city of New Orleans for the year 2023 to appropriate unassigned funds balance to the city council to provide additional funding to the support council contract initiatives regarding investigation and a utility appeal hearing process, and otherwise to provide respect thereto. Ordinance calendar number 34,427 by Councilmember Jeruso, and ordinance to amend ordinance number 29,266 MCS as amended entitled, and ordinance providing an operating budget of expenditures for the city of New Orleans for the year 2023 to appropriate funds to the city council to provide for the use of fund balance to support council contract initiative regarding the investigation and a utility hearing process, and otherwise to provide respect thereto. Ordinance calendar number 34,428 by Councilmember Harris by request, and ordinance to authorize the mayor of the city of New Orleans to enter into a cooperative endeavor agreement with the city of with the New Orleans Building Corporation for the administration of a parcel of land owned by the state of Louisiana located beneath US Highway 90, Pontchartrain Expressway, and otherwise to provide respect thereto. Ordinance calendar number 34,429 by Councilmember King by request, and ordinance to authorize the execution and delivery of the New Orleans Building Corporation in the city of New Orleans of the Sixth Amendment to the agreement of lease by and among NOBC and landlord Rockstep Riverwalk LLC, a Delaware limited liability company as tenant in the city as an intervenor, which amendment is attached here to as Exhibit A, in which amends the long-term lease as defined pursuant to which NOBC leases the property generally known as Spanish Plaza and Canal Street Wharf Wraparound Lane and the Lord Julius Street Wharf Wraparound Lane as more particularly described in the lease to Rockstep to operate a mall and related amenities and otherwise other uses as more particularly described in the lease and otherwise to provide respect thereto. Ordinance calendar number 34,430 by Councilmember Harris by request, and ordinance to authorize the mayor of the city of New Orleans to enter into amendment number 2 to a previously executed cooperative endeavor agreement between the city of New Orleans and the downtown development district of the city of New Orleans relative to infrastructure improvement and enhancements in the downtown development district to extend the term thereof for an additional 2 years as more fully set forth in amendment number 2 form attached here to is Exhibit 1 and made part hereof and otherwise to provide respects thereto. Ordinance calendar 34,431 by Councilmember Green by request, and ordinance to authorize the mayor of the city of New Orleans to enter into amendment number 4 to a previously executed cooperative endeavor agreement between the city of New Orleans and the University of New Orleans relative to the restoration in the city infrastructure damage as a result of Hurricane Katrina, including roads, the stormwater drainage system, water distribution lines, sanitary sewer collection lines, and Americans with Disability Act compliant curb ramps, all of furtherance of the joint infrastructure recovery request program to modify the provisions thereof as more fully set forth in amendment number 4, form attached hereto as exhibit 1 and made part hereof, and otherwise to provide respects thereto. Ordinance calendar number 34,432 by council members Jerusalem, Moreno, Green, and Thomas by request. An ordinance to amend ordinance number 29,266 MCS as amended entitled, an ordinance providing an operating budget of expenditures for the city of New Orleans for the year 2023 to move forward from the office of, to move funds from the office of the mayor to the Department of Human Services for NOLA East criminal justice work, and otherwise to provide respect thereto. Ordinance calendar number 34,433 by council members Jerusalem, Moreno, Green, and Thomas by request. An ordinance to amend ordinance number 29,265 MCS as amended entitled, an ordinance providing an operating budget of revenues for the city of New Orleans for the year 2023 to appropriate grant funds to the fire department for the purchase of foam firefighting trailer to have the capabilities to provide protection to the port of New Orleans and surrounding areas while transporting vast quantities of hazardous material and chemicals daily, and otherwise to provide respects thereto. Ordinance calendar number 34,434 by council members Jerusalem, Moreno, Green, and Thomas by request. An ordinance to amend ordinance number 29,266 MCS as amended entitled, an ordinance providing an operating budget of expenditures for the city of New Orleans for the year 2023 to appropriate grant funds to the fire department for the purchase of a foam firefighting trailer to have the capabilities to provide protection to the port of New Orleans and surrounding areas while transporting vast quantities of hazardous materials and chemicals daily, and otherwise to provide respect thereto. Ordinance calendar number 34,435 by council members Jerusalem, Moreno, Green, and Thomas by request. An ordinance to amend ordinance number 29,265 MCS as amended entitled, an ordinance providing an operating budget of revenues for the city of New Orleans for the year 2023 to appropriate state act 397 funds to the office of the mayor for public safety support services to install at least 5 public safety cameras and otherwise to provide with respects thereto. Ordinance calendar 34,436 by council member Jerusalem, Moreno, Green, and Thomas by request. An ordinance to amend ordinance number 29,266 MCS as amended entitled, an operating budget to an ordinance providing an operating budget of expenditures for the city of New Orleans for the year 2023 to appropriate State Act 397 funds to the office of the mayor for public safety support services to install at least 5 public safety cameras and otherwise to provide respect thereto. Ordinance calendar number 34,437 by Councilmember King by request. An ordinance authorizing the mayor of the city of New Orleans to enter into a cooperative endeavor agreement between the city of New Orleans and the Riverwalk Spanish Plaza Economic Development District, the Rock and Rockstep Riverwalk LLC, collectively referred to as party, for a term greater than 1 year for the public purpose of promoting economic development in the city of New Orleans and creating capital and infrastructure improvements, providing for cultural programming and enhancing security in Spanish Plaza Public Place as more fully detailed in the CEA form attached here to is Exhibit A and provided as respects thereto. Ordinance calendar number 34,438 by Councilmember Harris by request, and ordinance to authorize the mayor of the city of New Orleans to enter into a cooperative endeavor agreement between the city of New Orleans and the state of Louisiana Office of Facility Planning and Control to allow and facilitate the planning and construction of the dry kitchen incumbent project number 50 ML 32301 as more fully set forth in the cooperative endeavor agreement. Form attached here too is Exhibit A as made part hereof and otherwise to respects thereto. This completes ordinance on first readings.
Thank you. I've made a motion to adjourn, seconded by Councilmember Jeruso. All in favor?